Hello, friends. Today's episode contains discussions of suicide. We understand that this is a sensitive and difficult topic for many individuals, and we want to ensure that everyone feels safe and supported. Suicide is a complex and deeply personal issue that affects millions of people worldwide. Our intention is not to glamorize or trivialize suicide, but to foster a compassionate and informative conversation about mental health, raising awareness, and promoting understanding. It's important to remember that if you or someone you know is struggling with suicidal thoughts, it's crucial to seek professional help immediately. Consider reaching out to a mental health professional, a trusted friend, or a helpline in your country. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Strange and Beautiful Book Club. Remember, you are not alone. Welcome back, friends.
Welcome back.
It's time for another episode of the Strange and Beautiful Book Club, episode 3 of our 2023 Pride collection, where we are reviewing In the Flesh, the season 1 season finale, episode 3, because there's only 3 in the whole season.
Right.
Yeah. We did just put a nice long video, long by internet denizen standards, it's like 4 minutes long, on Instagram, all about all of the changes coming up for the podcast. I'm working on them throughout June, including migrating our hosting platform. So if you're having trouble finding episodes, or if you find anything problematic, let me know, because I'm moving things around and I'm changing some of the background infrastructure. So if you're having problems, I need to know so I can fix it. Everything should be fine, though. It should be fine. But, just on the off chance. But I really just want to talk about this episode, so I guess we should just get started. So, hi, I'm Rachel.
And I'm Matt.
Welcome to the Strange and Beautiful Book Club. So we just watched season 1, episode 3 of In the Flesh.
And I didn't expect them to kind of tie things up as neatly. They covered a lot.
Yeah.
And they really pulled your emotions around in all kinds of different directions.
Yeah, they really did. This was a roller coaster. And you know what? This is one neat, tight little season.
Yes.
I feel like if there was no second season, that would be okay.
Right.
I mean, I know that I'm glad there is, but at the same time, I don't feel like I'm left wondering about anything. Except that it'd be like, oh, I really wish I could find out, like, what happens in the world later. Like, what happens a year from now, 5 years from now.
Right. The larger scale societal changes.
Yeah, but
did this happen places other than England?
I don't
guessing,
know.
But
yeah. What happens in 50 years when these guys are still around and the family that they came back to is all gone?
Right.
Yeah. But other than those questions, which you're going to be left with, because nothing's going to be able to cover the entire scope of something like that. It just leaves you like, oh, okay. Like in the life of Kieran Walker, this is what happened. And I think this whole episode was a lesson in the lies we tell ourselves and the effect of those. The effects of continuing to tell the lies and refusing to see truth. And how sometimes that is a positive thing, and sometimes that is a dangerously murderous thing. Literally. Because we have almost vignettes, one might say, in this episode, where in the previous episode, we saved those 2 zombies, and the one guy got bit. So we deal with him like pretty effectively immediately. We stick him in a cage because nobody believes that
he fucked around and now he's finding out.
Right. Because even though it has nothing to do with a virus, it was literally like a one-off event where all the people that died in this one particular year just got up and started eating other people. There's still the prevalence in the culture of the zombiness and the fact that being bitten will make you a zombie. So this poor guy's stuck in this cage, and that's okay. He's checked off, done. And then we're kind of with Kieran as he wraps up different characters. Oh yeah, and we get to see that the night at the bar didn't end so sad for Amy as it as it did for Kieran. I mean, kind of, because they get up and she's getting her robe on, and Philip, who she slept with, is like, I can't let anybody know that this happened. I could lose my job. This is
right.
I can't. This can't happen again. And she's like I would want anybody to know that I slept with you.
Right. Which, how on point for the last, I don't know, year in 2023 with a lot of the coverage of like the drag queens and protecting the children.
Ugh, yeah.
And it's interesting to see how the media coverage has shifted to highlighting whenever somebody gets convicted or arrested for any kind of crime against children. It's like, oh, look at this white man who's in a position of authority in the church.
Oh, look at that.
Not a drag queen.
Not a drag queen. Oh, funny how that works, isn't it?
Yeah, and these zombies are horrible people.
Yeah.
These zombies are monsters. They're not people. Stay away from them.
Yeah.
And then,
who's doing the most shitty stuff?
Look at this white man who's in a position of authority in the church.
Yeah.
It's all projection.
Right.
Yeah.
They are the bad guys.
Yeah.
That's the takeaway from this episode.
Right. And this was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Which everything, all the same stuff was happening, but it wasn't as prominent it wasn't as visible in the zeitgeist.
Yeah. Almost as if the prevalence of corruption in religious institutions is endemic to the system and has always existed.
How about that?
Yeah. No, I said religious institutions. I'm not talking about religion in general. I'm talking about the institutions like the organized church and how often that power and that manipulation is used for ill-gotten gain.
Right. It makes people very susceptible to the lure of misusing that position of authority.
Yeah, it's the opiate of the masses. Right.
Yep.
So one of the big plot lines that we wrap up in this episode is Kieran versus the grocery store, because his biggest, most vibrant, most vivid memory that he has is,
which is still expanding.
Yeah, is killing this girl in this grocery store and eating her with Amy. Did you catch that? His hunting partner is Amy. And in this episode, he finds the grocery store. And so he goes in and he's all like disheveled. He just took out one contact to show Rick that he was a PDS sufferer, because even though Rick knew it, he needed to be
make it visceral.
Yeah, to throw it in his face. Yeah. And he's been out all night. They didn't let him ride back in the car, so he's had to walk back. So his makeup is all streaky. He's missing one contact, and he's like shuffling through this grocery store. And they keep showing it from the security camera point of view.
Right.
And which we did when we first saw the memory. We kept cutting back and forth. And so we do it again. And then he actually finds the spot, and he remembers that his sister found him in this grocery store and chose not to kill him. And so this is the first lie that we come across. I mean, we've been building this shit pile of lies in every relationship. Every relationship we have in this show so far is based on some lie that every party is telling themselves, and they're all trying to work to maintain, and it's exhausting.
Right. And if you reveal the lie in a like forthcoming way, it relieves the burden.
Right, because everyone is having to shoulder the burden of this deception.
Right, of
This-
maintaining the
yes.
illusion. Yeah.
So he goes to see his sister, and he's like, "Look,
I just remembered.
I remember. Your friend died." And she's like, "My friend didn't die. You killed her." And he's like, "Yeah, yep, I did."
And he owns it.
Yeah. And it was shit, and I'm sorry. And I'm sorry.
And I would do anything to have not done that.
Yeah. And Jemima, for her part, is like, I had to lie to my friends. I had to lie to my friends' family. Everyone thinks I'm this cold-blooded PDS killer, and I couldn't do it. I could not kill my brother. And he's like, "Well, I'm kind of glad you didn't."
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks. And she's like, "Really? Are you really glad I didn't kill you?" And he's like, yeah, I am. Like, I'm really glad you didn't. Partly, I think, because he's glad he got the second chance. And also because what would it have done to her to have killed her brother?
Right.
So once they get that off their chest, that is a huge burden of relief.
Right.
For
And
both of them.
she's been hanging on to this armband, and she's been keeping this gun on her.
Well, she's been keeping
Since
up this
episode 1.
mask. She's been
Right.
holding on to this mask because
And
she doesn't
so-
want anybody to know that she was too weak-willed to kill her brother.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, wait, maybe that wasn't a bad thing. Maybe that wasn't a horrible thing that I did, not killing him. Maybe it was okay. And so they decide from there they're going to go talk to Lisa's parents. Because he says, you know what, they deserve to know because they keep putting up flyers about she's missing. Where is she?
Right. We keep seeing them
Yeah.
in lots of
And
shots.
he's like, well, they need to know. So they go to their house, and Jemima goes with him, which I think is really sweet. And they're sitting on the couch, and it's really awkward because everything's covered in plastic. And Kieran's like, I see you got posters
they're
up
just
for
going on about making
Yeah.
the posters, and
he goes and
designed them
he prints them
himself.
out at the little shop. He designs them
Yeah.
on the computer, and Kieran's just getting more and more uncomfortable. And finally, he's like, "Look, she's not missing. She's dead, and I killed her." And they're like, "Oh yeah, we know. That's fine. But you bit her, right?" And he's like, "I mean, yeah, like I bit her, like in that I killed her, I guess." And they're like, "Well, that's fine. Then that's great. Like we're glad. We're so excited because that means she's gonna come back."
Right. Are you the one who moved her body?
Yeah, and he's like,
Because
"No,
nobody ever
I
found
didn't-
her body.
I didn't move her body, but like she's not coming back.
That's not how it works.
That's not how it works." And
This isn't a film.
I know they keep getting more and more worked up, and Jemima's like, "But it could be how it works." And he's getting ready to continue trying to educate them about how it actually does work. And he realizes that like they're living for this hope.
Right. Their purpose in life
Yeah.
is to be on this quest to potentially find their daughter.
Yeah, for
and
them.
that's the only thing keeping them going.
Yeah, for them, this deception is essential. This deception is what is keeping them alive. It is not a burden. It is the only thing they have left. So whereas revealing this deception to each other freed Jemima and Kieran from the tension that was poisoning their relationship, taking away the deception from these people would be cruel. Continuing to educate them, forcing them to face the truth would destroy them.
And in this case, it was that hope
Yeah,
that their daughter was still alive was
kindness.
driving them to
It was
continue
kindness
living.
to leave them with it, and that's fine. And so as they're walking back, they see Amy at the train station because Amy gets assaulted by douchebag HVF guy, not Bill, not the guy in the cage, but the other one. I don't remember his name. He's been ambiguously evil up till now. We haven't seen it. I mean, he's been morally gray, out for himself. But we didn't know what he would do We haven't seen him do anything actively cruel. So this is the first thing that we see him do that's like gross.
Right. Most of the stuff we've seen him do has been complain about the perks going away.
Yeah, and he asked about if Amy went to an all-girls school. Were they all lesbians? And she was like, oh yeah, we were all vag hounds. Just gross sexist bullshit. And they have passed a ruling that any family that has a PDS sufferer in their house has to have PDS painted on the side of their house. And so this guy has come to paint PDS on her house because she lives alone. She doesn't have any family.
Right.
And he comes into her house after he's done. He comes in uninvited. He illegally enters her property.
Right.
And she's watching a video and she shuts the laptop and he's like, it's not right you walking around town like that. She's like, well, I was going to get dressed, you asshole, but you walked into my room. And he's like, no, I mean, looking like that. Bare like that. Yeah. And so he smears makeup on her face.
He assaults her and smears makeup on her face.
And she's like, you know what? Why am I staying here? I don't have anyone here. I don't have any family here. There's no reason for me to stay in this racist shithole. I'm leaving. And so she does. She's at the train station.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Kieran's like, you're not going on a day trip without me, are you? And she's like, no, it's not a day trip.
And she makes a compelling argument for him to go with her. And he's almost swayed.
Almost. But she's going to see the undead prophet. And he's like, well, what about medicine? We have to take our medicine every day. And she's like, but he's got stockpiles.
He's got loads of it.
He's got loads. It's fine. We have socialized medicine. That's not even a concern. I can walk in anywhere and get it. What would that be like? She leaves. And she's wearing makeup when she leaves.
Yeah, she's all made up.
Yeah, because going au naturale didn't work out. At least for now.
Here.
Yeah. And it's kind of bittersweet. And they have like a kind of funny interaction because she's like, why are you staying in Wharton? It's a shithole. And he's like, I don't know. I think we can make it better. And she's like, oh, you're staying for Rick. And he's like, yeah, I'm staying for Rick. And she's like, Rick's a bit of a shithole too. And Kieran's like, I think I can fix that one too. And she's like, oh my God, you're an optimist. He's like, an optimist? I killed myself. She's
an optimist with suicidal tendencies.
Yeah, depressive tendencies. Yeah. And he goes, you leaving, that's going to make me depressed. Nice try, Kieran. Because she's like, oh, whatever. Bye. She does an impression of him. Yeah. She says, I need a big, strong man to come with me. And she does like a arm lift. And he's like, oh, is that what I look like? Is that it? She's like, that is the best impression of you that you've ever seen in your entire second life. Yep. And it's so cute. Their chemistry, their friend chemistry is really cute. Yeah. But then she's gone. And then actually we don't see Kieran again for a while.
Right. Because we get a lot of Rick.
Yeah. Because we go back to Rick because after last night, after Rick embarrassed Bill by siding
this whole
with Kieran,
time, Bill has been deluding himself farther and farther about what his son actually is.
Yeah.
And he's gotten to the point where he is bullshitting himself into believing that Rick is actually his living son.
Yeah.
Returned from the war.
The cognitive dissonance is strong with this one.
Yes. And to, reinforce this, he's convincing Rick to go take care of Kieran.
Well, he said that because Rick sided with Kieran, it's going to create insubordination. Insubordination in the ranks. And that flows
which is
downhill
really the
like
cognitive
piss.
Dissonance in his head.
Right.
Rick kind of broke through some of that.
Yeah.
By standing up for Kieran. And Bill is really struggling with it. And so Rick needs to make amends for the insubordination.
Yeah. And the problem here clearly is Kieran.
Obviously.
The problem here is Kieran.
Even before Rick went away, Kieran was a problem because Kieran was always around Rick. What was the deal with that? And Kieran's always been this bad influence on Rick.
Yep.
When really they were together.
Yeah.
But Rick had to keep it a secret because I'm not 100% sure that Bill's reaction to Rick saying, "Hey, Dad, I'm gay," like coming out
Yeah.
and saying, "I'm gay," would be any different from what happened when Rick came out and said, "Hey, Dad, I'm actually a zombie."
Yeah.
And his dad killed him and threw him on Kieran's driveway.
We're not ready for that yet. We're working our way up to that absolute shit show of parenting decisions.
Right. So,
yes.
I mean, it's absolutely an analogy.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Right.
this whole
That's-
thing is an analogy.
Right.
That's what
Right.
this is.
But this
yes.
one hits. This one's like more accurate
Very much so.
than
Yes.
some of the others. A little more abstract analogy.
Right.
Yeah.
Because Kieran is very much out of the closet as a PDS sufferer.
Yep.
And as someone who was romantically interested in Rick. And we never explicitly say it, but we hint so heavily. It's pretty clear that they were together and that Bill saw that. And so that's why he was trying to keep Rick away from Kieran, because he saw Kieran as the problem all along. And so Rick tries to warn Kieran because his dad is hellbent. They are going to kill Kieran, and Rick is going to be the one to do it. So he gets some change and he goes to get his dad some cigarettes. And while he's there, he makes a phone call. And he calls him to tell him, like, look, Kieran, you're in danger. You're in danger from me and from my dad. And if you see us, you need to run. Run as fast as you can, because we are coming to kill you. And nobody can find the phone, because that's what happened when you had a cordless phone at home. Is that
It
shit
always
would
wandered off.
It would just wander off. It's
like the TV remote.
It was like a TV remote, because it was only a phone. You didn't have it on you to do anything else. So unless someone was calling you, you weren't checking in on its location. And so it's missing and they can't answer it. And they're like, oh God, never mind. This is what it is. Rick calls while they're getting ready to go visit Lisa's family. So Jemima and Kieran are leaving together.
So much earlier in the episode.
It's very early in the episode. We know that's sort of the river of shit that is flowing underneath all the rest of the plot, is that Rick is facing...
At any moment.
Rick is facing the fact that his dad wants him to kill the man he loves.
Yeah.
Is what it is. And he wants him to do it because his dad is so deluded, he doesn't believe that his own son is a PDS sufferer. And so he takes him to church after calling the minister and telling him he needs to write a real good sermon, because he's got a
motivational speech.
He's got to fire Rick up. And so we get this. We are called to judge the dead. We are the living. We are the righteous ones, and they are all evil. And even if they look like your friends and your family, they are wolf in sheep's clothing. They are evil, and we need to judge them as evil, and we need to destroy them. And then when he's leaving, he does this little bit of subtle manipulation on Bill, which at this point, Bill is so suggestible. This minister could tell him anything, but he's like, there's going to be a second rising. And if the dead are worthy, they're going to get to come back again. This time, it's going to be the people who are worth having back. They're the ones who are going to come back. Just so you know. Okay? And Bill's like, heard. I hear you, man.
Loud and clear.
Loud and clear. So they go back to prep, like to teach him how to do because if you destroy the brain, you still destroy them.
Right.
So that's what happens. They go back to the house, and the poor mother is at a support group meeting for all the moms. And she's like, you know what? At first I was really scared, but then I realized I got my boy back. I got my handsome man back.
Right. It's the real him.
Yeah. He's been gone for 5 years.
Deep down, I can tell he's the same person.
And he was gone for 5 years, and I thought I was never going to see him again. And I got him back. I finally got him back. And we hear from Kieran's mother, and she talks about the aftermath of Kieran killing himself and how her family went into free fall. And it nearly destroyed all of them.
Right. And she cycles between grief and anger and crying.
Yeah.
And she can't keep up with it.
She can't, because she's happy he's back. She's sad she lost him at all, sad at what he's become, but like angry at the circumstances that led them to this. Angry at Kieran for what he did, which is, I'm glad they talked about that in this episode, and the fact that that's a very real part of grief, especially grief in a death that we view as preventable. And it's important to normalize the fact that that's going to happen. You're going to have those feelings of anger and frustration. And I'm so glad they discussed it in this episode. I mean, we cover a lot of very sensitive topics in these 3 episodes under the guise of a zombie show. We cover...
This is what fantasy and sci-fi are for.
Yeah, that is the purpose.
Break it out of this kind of normalized frame that we're used to thinking about things day to day, and you have the same conversation, except you're substituting in different words.
Right, and you get to create these scenarios that would never otherwise exist. If you had someone who completed suicide and they were gone, and they were gone for years, and then you got the chance to have them back, and you get to talk to them about how you felt and what the aftermath of those years was like for you and for the people around you. And it's really sad, and it's really uplifting, and it's really amazing that they talk about all of these different things. And I don't think this show gets the credit it deserves. We were trying to find something about it on YouTube. There's nothing.
Right. There's just, you can buy or rent
episodes of
these episodes on YouTube, and that's it. There's nobody commenting on the content of the show.
Yeah. I mean, everyone loved the Bill and Frank episode of Last of Us.
Last of Us. Yeah.
Rightly so. Great episode. Wonderful episode.
Emotional episode.
This episode was just as emotionally engaging.
I think way more.
I mean,
we go deeper.
There is
into like every topic.
3 episodes they got for this season, and there is so much fucking depth. When he finds Rick, so Rick is finally like, no more.
Yeah, he's just like, Dad, I need a minute. And so he goes to the bathroom, and he covers up the damaged half of his face, and you're not sure, is he like psyching himself up, like internally convincing himself, I am still a person, I'm real, I'm Rick, and this is the face that I remember looking at in the mirror. But I think it's more like he's taking one last look at that made up face of what he used to look like before he takes off the mask.
And I think he's saying goodbye to himself, because he has to know there's the very real possibility that his dad will kill him.
Right.
That's why he hasn't stood up to his dad this entire time.
Right. And
his entire life.
That person has spent a lot of time being that person. So that person is a real part of him.
Yeah, and it's time for him to literally and metaphorically remove his mask.
Yep.
And so he does. He takes all of his makeup off, and he comes out and he's like, Dad, I'm not going to kill Kieran.
And even with all of this, like the physical act of removing all his makeup and like the decision of, okay, I'm going to come clean with my dad. Even then, when he talks to his dad, the only thing he can say about Kieran is, he's my best mate.
Yeah.
Not, I'm in love with him.
Yeah.
And I want to be with him forever. It's, I can't hurt him. He's my best mate.
And we're the same.
Yep.
In a lot of ways. And one of those is I'm a PDS sufferer too. And I know you've been lying to yourself about it, and I've been letting you do that. So I'm a little bit complicit in this too, but I'm done doing that now. And I need you to see the truth about who I am. And his dad's like, I see you. I understand.
You must feel trapped.
You must feel trapped in there.
Like something's wrong and you just need to get out.
And then they embrace. And Rick is crying because for once he feels like his dad really has seen him and accepted him and then embraced him. Like
but
he
he's
finally
just leveled up the bullshit.
I know, but like he finally took that chance and it paid off.
All right.
And we actually are left in that moment this is a brilliant choice on their part, is we are left in that moment of, wow, maybe Bill really did understand. Maybe is all going to work.
Maybe he finally turned it around.
Maybe this is all going to work out and Karen and Rick are going to get the second chance they deserve. Because we do not see Rick again. We go back, we see Kieran standing on a bridge.
We see Bill drive by.
Wait, Jemima finally, there's all this uplifting music. Jemima has, because of the relief of this burden, she's finally able to take off her fatigues. She's finally able to take off her armband. She can put the gun away. And while she's putting the gun away, hot damn, there's the handset. So she picks it up and listens to the message. And it's the message that Rick left at the beginning of the episode. And so she runs off to go find Kieran, and we switch to Kieran, who we haven't seen for a while, but he's just standing on a bridge, which I love how this entire town is also rotting. Have you noticed that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, everything is rusty and falling apart and chipped and broken. And he's standing on this rusty bridge, and we see Bill driving down the road, and he drives past Kieran and just keeps going. And Kieran's like, that's really weird. And so he keeps walking. And as he's walking to his house, he sees the PDS sign painted on the garage. And then he sees Rick's body lying on the ground in front of the PDS sign. And we get this really emotional moment where he's crying because all this, and they still can't be together.
Yep.
All of this. And why? Because of one man's hatred. Because of one man's bigotry and hatred. And that's why. Because he could never see his son for who he is. He could only see him for who he wanted him to be. And because of that, look at all of the people that were affected. Because this poor mother who is at this support group coming to the realization that she loves her son and that she's glad to have him back. She goes back home and Bill is just sitting on the chair watching sports.
Watching the game.
Watching sports. And she's like, oh, hey, so where's Rick? And he's like, Rick?
I haven't seen Rick in 5 years.
I haven't seen Rick in 5 years. And she looks over and he's put all of the memorial stuff back up.
Because the stuff that they took down.
Because they had taken it all down.
When he came home.
Yeah. And she's like, Bill, what did you do? And that's when Kieran is banging on the door and she lets him in.
I think this is an interesting contrast for Kieran's character as a demonstration of how much he's grown as a person since he came back.
Yes.
Because the first time Rick died, he left.
Yeah,
And the second time Rick died, he gonna cut a bitch.
Yeah, he gonna cut it. Because he comes back with the knife that Bill used to kill his own son. And he stabs it into the arm of the chair. And the only thing Bill has to say is, this is why we kicked you out last time. You're banned from this house. And he's like, fuck you. You banned me 8 years ago for making your son a mixed CD. Fuck you. And you killed. What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you?
Right. And so then he starts unraveling the bullshit.
Yeah.
And just repeating the lines that he's been fed by the minister.
Yeah.
About the second rising.
Yeah.
And he'll come back proper.
Yeah. Not
and like, what the fuck are you talking about?
You had him back. It was a gift. This was a motherfucking gift. You had your son back. It was a once ever chance. It's never coming back. He's never coming back. And the mother is like, she loses it. Very rightly. She has been trying to hold it together this entire time for Rick's sake.
In the face of all of Bill's bigotry.
Yeah.
She has been just kind of standing by, trying to keep things calm in the household.
Yeah.
But she's just come to terms with the fact that she was angry, she was sad, but ultimately she's glad her son is back.
Yeah.
And then he's gone again.
Yeah. Now he's gone and Bill took him away from her again. Because Bill is the one who made him sign up for the military too.
Yep.
So that's twice her husband has put her son in a position to be killed. One time by sending him off to war, and another time by killing him with his own hands. So she takes the knife and she's like, "That's it, motherfucker." And she starts slashing at him. And Kieran actually holds her back. And she gets Bill across the palms. Which
defensive wounds.
Yeah, defensive wounds. So now there is literally blood on his hands. Literally and metaphorically. The symbolism here is strong. And that is enough for him to be like, oh, holy shit. What did I do?
I'm wondering if the thing that really woke him up out of that was the fact that his wife, who has been submissive for probably 40 years, literally attacked him with a knife, yelling and screaming.
Yeah.
And that was the thing that was most
jarring,
out of line with his model of how the world works.
Yeah.
That it snapped him out of it.
It woke him up.
He's woke now.
Almost as if the opposite of woke is asleep.
Okay.
Is asleep the better thing to be?
So he's just like grappling with this, walking out of his house. Bam! Good shot, Ken.
Good shot, Ken. Hey, you guys remember Ken? The one that Bill shot his wife in the head? That Ken?
In the street?
Yeah. Ken's like, well, I was waiting for my moment. This felt like a good one because no one was going to stop Bill. Bill had killed his wife. Bill had killed Ken's wife.
Yeah.
Bill had killed his own son. There was literally no limit to what Bill's delusion was going to allow him to do. If no one had
stopped Bill yet, no one was going to at all.
So Ken was like, looks like this is a job for me. And he shot him in the chest. And literally the only person who says anything about it is the guy in the cage. And he goes, I didn't see anything.
I'm imagining Ken just like regularly patrolling around with his shotgun.
Yeah.
And then he gets in front of Bill's house and he's just kind of pacing back and forth, like psyching himself up. And then here comes Bill just stumbling out, completely oblivious.
Yeah.
And he's like, my prayers have been answered.
Well, I think he was sitting he was looking out the window and he was, walking around the town. And I think he was fine. He was seeing all the stuff that Bill was doing.
He would have sat there and watched Bill dump his son in Kieran's driveway.
Yeah. And I think it was like,
and that was probably
this
the last
farther
straw.
And no more.
Yeah.
This far and no farther. This is it. We're done. And so that's it. That's the end of Bill. That's the end of Rick. And that's the end of the show.
We get a scene in the graveyard.
Well, no. First, this is important. We can't skip this part. So Kieran runs because he can't handle this.
Oh, yes. This is the family.
Yes. So
resolution.
Kieran disappears and he ends up going to the cave where he died last time.
Which we didn't know why the cave was so significant emotionally to Kieran in episode 2.
No.
Because when he ran away to this cave.
Yeah.
And he gets there, but there's zombies.
Yeah.
And once again, he runs away to this cave. And
We see Rick and Ren forever written on the ceiling.
yes, written on the cave wall.
Because he's just sitting in there having a moment. Because he just needs a moment. And something starts walking in the cave. And for a minute, we're scared. But then then it's
He's
his mom.
like, oh shit, is that Lisa?
And he's like, Lisa? She goes, Kieran? And he's like, oh, Mom. Well, you scared the pants out of me. She's like, I scared you? And he's like, well, I wasn't gonna do that again. I was just sitting here for a minute. And so she tells him a story about when she had a boyfriend. She goes, I've lost somebody too. I had a very close boyfriend. I thought for sure we were going to be together forever.
Right. She'd imagined this whole life of them together.
Yeah, and he left me. And, I considered taking my own life. So I went down to the pharmacy and I tried to get something to do that with. And the man behind the counter refused to sell it to me. And instead he gave me a cup of tea and we talked all night. And did you know your father was that funny? Because
He made me laugh.
Because that's the man I married. And she says, I sometimes wish he would talk more, not about the weather and Blu-rays, but about the things that matter.
Right, the real things.
The real things. The delusions that we've been clutching so tightly.
Right, and he would talk to you, about the real things.
Yeah, if you just get him to, if you'd let him. And so they kind of have this is their moment of revelation with each other, which is, if you would have talked to me about how you were in pain, I could have helped you. And I really wish you would have.
Because she knows what it's like.
Yeah, and I really wish you would have. But you didn't. I mean, we can't change the past, but I'm here for you. I do have experience that could help you. You are not alone. And so they go back to the house, and the dad's like, oh, whew, glad you're back.
Right, and this whole time, he's been this, chipper guy.
Yeah.
Who's always just making light of everything.
Yeah.
Just trying to keep everybody kind of happy and on the up and up.
Yeah, just really trying to force this into a positive narrative. And really, it's just that they have woven this web of self-deception so tightly because they've needed it as armor for so long, and they don't need it anymore. And now it's become a burden, and they don't know how to put it down. And so Kieran tells him, don't let me off that easy. You need to yell at me. And his dad's like, well, I don't,
because he knows that his dad is holding on to some very strong emotions.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, well, you're grounded. He's like, nope, not good enough. Yell at me harder. And he's like, you left for days and you didn't tell me where you were going.
He keeps going to your mother's feelings, like your sister,
yeah.
Don't you realize how you made them feel? And he's like, keep going.
Keep going. Now do you. And finally the dad's like, I didn't know where you'd gone. I thought I was going to have to call the police. I decided I was going to go find you myself. I put on my coat. I went out to the cave. I saw you there. You were slumped against a rock. And I thought, thank God he's okay. He's okay. And then I saw the Swiss Army knife.
Is selling this.
Yeah. And then I saw the Swiss Army knife that I had given you for your birthday. And I saw the blood all over everywhere. And I tried to pick you up and I tried to carry you back, but I couldn't.
And I ran and I ran and I ran.
But you were already gone. And he holds his arms out because you have to imagine if it had been a while and he'd been there, he would have tried to pick his son up and he couldn't because his son would have been stiff from rigor, which is a horrifying thing to think about. I'm sorry. I'm having an unexpected emotional reaction to this right now. But
ditto.
Just to think about finding your child that way is really hard. And how could he face it? You'd rather not face it. And then he comes back and you have the chance to talk about it, but you don't want to because what if you lose them again?
Right, because if he was struggling so much that he felt like he had to end it.
Yeah.
And he couldn't talk about it then. And now this kind of almost equally horrible thing has happened to him
Yes.
because he's not alive anymore.
Right.
How can he broach the subject now? And if he tries, how much more likely is it that his son will leave again?
We'll leave again.
And so he just pretends that they're just this,
Yeah. We're going to play
the
board
same
games. We're going to
family.
watch movies, and we're not going to talk about it.
and we're going to have Kieran pretend to eat dinner
Yeah.
with the family every night.
Right. Because it's better to just live in this deception than it is to face it. But in the end, it's not. It's liberating. This moment is liberating for everybody because they're finally able to actually embrace. They're finally able to actually move past this. And sure, there's a lot more baggage to go through, but this is a good first step. And it really just highlights the difference between a family that saw their son for who he was and did not judge him for who he was, would have absolutely accepted him and helped him, but he didn't know that they would have. He didn't know he could reach out. And the family where they absolutely did not accept their son. Bill did not believe who his son was, who he actually was. And Rick actually had no one. He had no help. He had nothing. And it's really, really poignant. And this is a really fucking good show. And I really wish it had gotten more credit because there's a lot of really good lessons here couched in zombie lore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like we covered. I mean, this is the point of story. This is the point of story. This being able to empathize with these characters that are in a situation you'll never be in, but to then take those lessons and apply them to real life. It's the difference between a family that accepts that a child is who they are, and your job is to love them and accept them for who they are and not make them who they are or change who they are.
Right. Force them to act like they are the person that you think they are.
Right. You don't get to put them in a mold. You don't get to do that. They literally come out their own little people. And your job is to make sure that they become the best version of those little people possible without changing who they are and without breaking their little spirits.
Yeah.
And then there are the people who I have a child, I have an idea of who they are going to be, and I will accept no substitutions. And look where that got you. If you're in this world, it gets you Rick dead and buried again. And Bill dead and buried for the first time.
Hopefully the last.
Hopefully the last. Because that's our last scene is them getting buried and then dirt being thrown on the coffin. And that's it.
Season 1.
Season 1 concluded. On to season 2. And I honestly remember this season being way longer. I think just because so much happens.
Right.
And it's so heart-wrenching that you're like, oh, I feel like I survived a year with these characters, not 3 hours. It's amazing what they accomplish, which means it must have been canceled after season 1 and then they had to bring it back for season 2 because I know there was a campaign to bring it back. And so we're going to get 8 more episodes, I think, of season 2.
6.
6. Okay, not even that. 6. So this is going to
twice as many.
This is interesting. I actually don't think I watched season 2. I really thought I had.
I vaguely recall.
I don't think I did.
I vaguely recall them going to someplace with a big tent.
Okay. You know what? Maybe we did, but maybe like season 1 was so poignant. That's what lingered 10 years later.
Yeah.
That could very well be it too, but I'm looking forward to it. And we're just going to keep moving. We're going to try to get all the In the Flesh episodes in June, not because Pride ends in June, but because we're ready to start our new round of things in July. Or Pride all the time, right?
Yep.
Pride shouldn't be restricted to a month because people being who they are doesn't happen seasonally. It's not like, oh, it's June. We can we can bring out the gayness for a little while, and then we gotta put that
And then we
back on
gotta
the hanger and stick
put
it
out
back
the
in the
flag
closet.
for
Yeah.
4th of July.
Put it in with the Christmas decorations. It's
Right.
fine. Change all of our flags to red, white, and blue.
Yeah. Now, one more thing about this episode. Rachel remembered there being an after credits scene after they buried Rick.
Yeah.
Where he's banging on the inside of the coffin.
Yeah.
But it wasn't on the episode that we watched.
No.
And we couldn't find any reference to it. That's what we were looking for.
On YouTube.
On YouTube.
Yeah.
We figured there would be something about it. But I guess that was 10 years ago, and people weren't doing commentary on TV shows on YouTube 10 years ago.
Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe I just retconned myself into thinking that, or it's like a Mandela
Because that
effect thing.
would be an interesting twist that the mother does get Rick back. But
There
now
actually is a second rising.
But Bill's not there to poison that relationship.
That would have been interesting. But I don't know how else that. I mean, of course I wish they both had lived and it had been a happy ending. But I'm not mad at the ending. Because this is a lesson. This is a narrative device to show you what hate does to people. I get it. And I accept that. If we had gotten a 180 from Bill and he had actually accepted Rick for who he was, I'm not sure I would have believed it.
Right.
Not without more groundwork. I think Ken needs to shoot the priest next. That's my hot take. I mean, let's just point Ken at everybody that's just frothing up the hatred in this town. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
just going to leave it at that. Because I just said something very hateful about killing people who are frothing up hate. But, I don't know. I'm just angry at the priest because it's definitely, he's not innocent in this in the slightest.
Not at all.
Not at all. And I think I'm a little bit triggered by the religious angle of this whole series. So I'm just going to leave it. I'm just going to leave that there. I'm just going to put that on a plate. I'm going to live with that for a couple of days until we do the next In the Flesh episode. And then I'm going to come back and I'll report on how I feel about it now.
And I'll remind you to remember that sometimes the strangest things are the most beautiful too.
So be who you are and love what you love and who you love. And that was a really good segue. So thank you, honey. I love you.
Welcome. Love you too, honey.
Until next time, friends.
Bye.
Bye. You are listening to a Strange and Beautiful Network podcast, a network of shows focusing on unscripted discussions that promote positive but honest engagement with all the weird and wonderful topics that make our hearts happy. I want to take a moment to express my heartfelt gratitude to all our listeners. Your continuous support and engagement mean the world to us. So if you're enjoying the show, make sure to spread the love, rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Strange and Beautiful Network to stay updated on the latest episodes, behind-the-scenes peeks, and exclusive content from all our shows. You can also find additional ways to support this show on our Patreon page at patreon.com/Strange and Beautiful Network. By becoming a patron, you'll gain access to bonus episodes, early releases, our Discord channel, and other exciting perks. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.